Mark Cockerill, Senior Vice President for Legal and Country Lead at ServiceNow. Thanks so much for coming to the studio and being with us.
Thank you. My pleasure, Anne. Lovely to be with you.
And tell me, for those who don't know, tell us, relatively briefly about ServiceNow and, what a large organisation it is and how fast growing it is. It's quite a fascinating story.
Yeah, thanks. Look, ServiceNow, I think the one sentence answer is it's an AI-powered cloud platform. I think the more complicated answer is that it's a platform and technology that's really been enabled to facilitate customers to fully digitally transform their operations. We've been very successful globally because the largest organizations in the world, about 85% of the Fortune 500 and governments around the world, see the capability of what our platform and technology does. Historically, we'd have been known in IT and ITSM elements, but really, whether it's HR operations, customer service operations, any business problem or solution that you really have, you need the technology that can bring together all the disparate parts of an organization, have that single platform that helps it make sense and can streamline your workflows and automate your workflows to make them easier, more efficient for your team, more efficient for your customers, and ultimately help the world work better.
So AI powered, you mentioned very early on, and would it be fair to say that you were using AI and machine learning or whatever it might be well before the whole ChatGPT revolution?
Yeah, absolutely. I think machine learning and the kind of the quicker automation of technology and to help technology, as I say, solve those workflows, solve those business problems has always been core and critical to everything we build. We build and develop 2 new full releases every year, for example. So the platform, the capability of the platform is always evolving and developing. And when you say about AI, as I always like to make the point, people have talked about it for a long time, but it's real and it's substantive. And generative AI, for us, isn't a theoretical context. We're not talking about the idea of what it might do in the future. It's live. We've multiple utilizations already embedded in our platform. Our customers are actively using Gen AI to expedite their transformations. And I think that's the exciting thing. It's actually been our fastest ever selling product and capability. And we were acquiring companies many years ago to build in the capability for this. And then we add on like a focus on building it, a focus on great partnerships with NVIDIA and Microsoft and Fujitsu and other great partners like that. And that's what really helps bring it to life rather than just theory.
And tell me a little bit about how fast the growth has been, because it's
Sure.
pretty phenomenal.
In a pure financial sense, we've been growing pretty consistently at about 25% year on year, which is, it's easy to do maybe at a billion or 2 billion. At the scale we're at now, we're over 10 billion in revenues. I think as a software, if you think of pure software companies, I think only maybe 7 companies in history have ever got there as in revenue, and we're only the second ever that's native to the cloud to do it, and we're the fastest ever to get there. And we're also doing that still generating free cash flow. So when you combine the 2 metrics, we're generally operating above the rule of 50, which isn't bad. I usually say the rule of 40 is okay, so we've been very successful at that. But it boils down to a couple of key things. It boils down to the technology. It boils down, of course, to our customers and that they see the value and they're realizing the value. And it boils down to the team. It boils down to the employees. It boils down to the great group of people that work on these matters day in, day out.
And what size of team are we talking about?
So globally, we're over 23,000 people. Wow. So, that's good and it's sizable. I joined 5 years ago and I think we're at 7,000. So it's pretty quick getting up there. It's important about the whole ecosystem, though. That's where partners come into play, and that's what the importance of those relationships is like. And then locally in Ireland, it's been fantastic because when I joined, it was we didn't have a printer. There was 10 people, 12 people, and there was kind of a lot of engineers who wanted to run away because I worked in legal. And from that now in Ireland alone, we've about 620 people. We've just moved into these great new premises on Dawson Street overlooking Trinity, which is, fascinating location and great for the future of our growth. And we've got 37 different teams. It's not just a couple of disparate teams, 37 different teams 45 nationalities there, and it's really a key strategic hub for us globally in terms of the services and the talent that's driving that global growth.
And that's wonderful. And tell me a little bit more. You were talking about great teams, about the talent, and I suppose attracting and retaining the best people.
Sure.
Because I presume you were talking about the number of teams. This is a wide range of roles.
Yes, absolutely, and it's across the spectrum of roles. So I think it's fascinating in Ireland, in Dublin in particular, but across Ireland, there is an ongoing talent war. There is only so many great talents, and so many great talents that I think have the experience in terms of the challenges or the expectations in terms of multinational FDI, the technology capabilities, and the experience in dealing with those things. But I always like to say, I like to quote Isaac Newton, if I can see further than you, it's because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. We are fortunate that there is a strong, even though it's competitive, there is a strong talent base of many people that maybe have come to Ireland and made it its home. But you talk about the STEM talent coming through the universities every single year. So it is not that there's a struggle for, the resources are important, and they're very nuanced in relation to it, but it's not like it's scarce. It's not like it's impossible. What is important is how it's always a two-way street. It's like, I like to think ServiceNow is a very attractive place to work, and we're very exciting. We've got a great growth story and a great group of people. But equally, it's got to be the right environment. It's got to be the right culture. It's got to be the right attractive proposition to these key people and talents. So that's always part of the two-way street of having that conversation and telling that story.
Which brings me very neatly around to yourself and your own journey. You were talking about culture there, but tell me a little bit about your journey before ServiceNow and how you got here.
Yeah, sure. So as you say, I'm SVP of legal. I've always been a lawyer, university, etc. over here. My accent confused a few people, but I've lived in Ireland since I was 6, actually, and studied here. Private practice, pretty similar story, but I was very fortunate. I got an opportunity to work in-house back for Meteor when I was in my early 20s. We talk a lot about culture and experiences and environments. It was a fantastic opening into relation to how law and legal can work with a business, and particularly in a period of growth and a period of excitement, and probably a period of a lot of 20-year-olds running around trying to figure themselves out and figure out how to do things. But a great group of people. And one of the interesting things, it's a life lesson I remember hearing at the time. One of a good friend of mine, he said to me, look, never try to recreate this or capture this again. You've got to appreciate sometimes some moments in your life, some jobs, some groups of surroundings are very special. And that was always a really great lesson I heard at the time. So I never chased repeating it because I had to appreciate what it was. But what it did give me the love for was the idea of not being the external counsel, dropping the grenades from afar, but actually being in the foxhole together. How do we solve things? How can I use my experience with your experience, to come together for the betterment of the company, to come together to a common goal? So, from there I stayed in telcos. I worked with Telefonica, director of legal in Air then as well, and then over time the opportunity and the experience, I suppose, to do ServiceNow came up, and that's the exciting thing. Yeah. That's been exciting.
I love that idea of not siloing off legal, sort of, to, as you said, the people who just kind of parachute in when there's a problem.
Yeah.
That you actually integrate yourself into the team more.
Yeah. I can do a corny business line about we don't have silos in technology, and you want to bring everything together. But truly, when I think of leadership, when I think of business, I think that is where, whether you're a lawyer, a marketeer, a finance person, HR, sales, it doesn't matter your role. That's where true leadership and evolution comes from. You don't allow the silos to happen. You don't just say, this is my neck of the woods. This is all I'm going to be concerned with. The inherent, I always say curiosity is one of the key skills I look for in team members and leadership. I want the intellectual curiosity to care about the business, the organization, other people's roles, how it all stitches together. And I think from that, you're a better lawyer, you're a better business partner, you're a better leader, fundamentally. So
yeah, I love that. I love that. And you've probably answered a lot of it there, because the next thing I was going to ask you is I suppose, what do you see as the attributes of a great leader, or
sure.
What would you aspire to be as a leader?
Yeah. I'll keep aspiring, is what I'll say. I think, curiosity, as I called out. And I'd take it also curiosity on what you can do better, which sometimes it's easy to say, but it's not so easy to do. I'd also throw honesty in there. I think honesty is the most critical aspect. And that honesty comes in many folds. Yes, it's being honest with yourself. It's being honest with yourself. And when people talk about self-awareness, the person that tells me I'm extremely self-aware has no self-awareness whatsoever. You've got to be honest with yourself to acknowledge flaws and listen to others about that flaws. But also, as a great leader, I think honesty with others is critical. It's very easy to do the simple things, very easy to plamass people, very easy to, just keep the peace. But if you really care as a leader, if you really care about your team, I think the honesty to help them grow and get better is one of the most critical attributes that exists.
What does ServiceNow do to retain those remarkable people and those wonderful talent you mentioned earlier?
No, look, it's a great question, because I think every organisation around the world is constantly focused on this. It's all well and good to have a great company, a great technology, but if the people aren't there, it's meaningless. So a lot of the focus has to be, we call it our people pact, and it's very much focused on helping people do their best work and creating the right circumstances for them, creating the right culture to support them. And yes, like many people, it's about how do you create that sense of belonging? How do you create that sense of engagement across teams? And in Ireland, we have this challenge maybe more than most locations. We've got so many disparate teams. You've got 37 disparate teams. Many of these might have leaders in Europe or leaders in the US. And whilst we have a number of really strong global leaders, and we head up a number of global teams as well as regional teams from here, that is a constant focus. How do you create that sense of conjoinment amongst the organisation? I have to say, I mentioned that we just took this lovely new property, 60 Dawson Street. It's 90,000 square feet, overlooking Trinity. It's as central as you can be. And the one thing I say to the team all the time is this is a depiction of our investment in you. Like, we are investing in you, in your time, in your capability, that, if you're coming into the office, it is as a nice an environment as you can have. And of course, we're hybrid like many organizations are these days. So, it's not an expectation that you're in 5 days a week, but we do want you in. We do want to create that sense of belonging. We do want to create that sense of teamwork. So every time you look at that building, think of that in terms of how we invest in you, how we want you to understand how we feel about you as a team. And it seems to be resonating, which is important.
Right. And I'm just interested, because we were talking about that sort of hybrid workplace and all the rest of it. Why is it important that you have people in for some of the time at least?
Yeah, I think it's just fundamental to creating that degree of connection. I mean, we are humans. There is a degree of involvement on a human level where if you know and meet someone, it's a very different relationship than it is through a Zoom or through a Teams or through, emails. And the written word and the oral word and body language cues are very different. Now, I would say we're not essential that everybody has to meet. We have a hybrid work style, but we also have a lot of remote workers. So about 25% of our workforce here is remote. We have someone in every county in the Republic. And that is fantastic as well. And actually what keeps me up at night sometimes is how do you help those people still feel part of Ireland? How do you feel part of the wider team and network that exists here? And that's something we are all working on as leaders and all striving to get better. And that's one of the key things, self-improvement all the time as a leader, and being genuine in that self-improvement and being genuine to give passion and direction to people, I think is the only way and is the most critical thing to try to bring that team along and support them.
Our partners on this series are, IDA Ireland.
Yeah.
So I'm just interested to know in what way, have they supported you over the years? Not just the obvious stuff like helping ServiceNow to get to Ireland, but
Sure.
here on the ground in Ireland.
I'm a huge fan of the IDA generally. I will openly admit it. In my day job, I have responsibility for international development, so I actually deal with a lot of different development agencies around the world. I can safely say, and we don't say it enough, the IDA are the best. They're the best in the world. And it may be a little bit of the Irish kind of downplaying of, they kind of like to downplay it a little bit, but the truth is that everyone knows the mission statement, knows the narrative, and fundamentally is there to support. I will say on a practical level, the access and the openness on various matters just blows people away. And I've had aspects where colleagues in the US will say, we've got a challenge coming up in different jurisdictions, or there's different interpretations coming up of things. How are the Irish thinking about this? Or how's the Irish government thinking about this? And I reach out to the IDA and instantly they'll share their insights on what they're hearing or what they're thinking or what they're considering in relation to it. That kind of immediate access, when I get a call on a Monday and there's a call directly with a key subject matter expert on a Tuesday, that is special and that blows people away. And like I say, it's that whole lean in from everyone in the organisation, which I think is fantastic.
I'm sure they'd be delighted to hear that. And tell me then, whether it's the sector in general or whether it's ServiceNow, looking to the future, the sort of the trends that you see in the coming years?
I think generative AI is absolutely the forefront. And look, the core aspect why I think that's so important is what we see from customers, what we see just in the industry as a whole, is everybody's looking to simplify. Everyone's looking to do more with their technology, to innovate at the same time. So when you're trying to balance that simplification innovation, where you put your dollars as an organisation, or euros or pounds, you have that challenge fundamentally. And I think generative AI and the capability being built in by ourselves and others really accelerates that process. So I think that is a game changer in so many ways in how industry and business is thinking about the world. It's not all cheating on your exams or helping you write a CV, but it will help people on a day-to-day basis. In the same way email changed people's worlds. Instant messaging, even the move to the cloud generally from siloed stacks that used to be in your basement. Those technology evolutions, I think, will continue. But this is the game changer that's currently on. I mean, I talk about this as the sixth industrial revolution. After every industrial revolution, there's always more jobs afterwards. There's always actually more democratization in terms of certainly developed worlds with developed ecosystems for more parts of the population to be involved in work. But the jobs may change, the jobs may evolve, and so the whole reskilling element as well, the whole employee experience element is got to be a key focus and a key aspect that, yes, businesses, but also governments are going to be challenged with and have to confront in the future. We can get into quantum computing and everything else that might be more science fiction, but the reality is Gen AI is science fact now. So that's why it's so prescient for the coming years.
I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for being with us today. That was fascinating. Thanks a million, Mark.
No problem. My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.